Welcome back, Year 5. In today's reading lesson, we'll be moving on to Chapter 13 of Fantastic Mr. Fox. We have one learning intention, and it's to independently retell a portion of a larger text. We've been working towards this all week, so today is your chance to do it all on your own, but I will give you some tips and tricks beforehand just to refresh your brain on what needs to go into a good retell. So before we read the chapters, let's look at the success criteria, the things you have to do to make a good retell. First, you need to figure out the main idea, because this will help guide your entire retell. So you need to think to yourself after we read these two chapters, what was the biggest point? What was the most important thing that happened? When you know that, you can do the next thing in our success criteria, and that's to identify the major events in the passage. All the major events should tie to that big idea. Also, please bear in mind that you should not be including minor events or details. That means as well that you should not be copying words directly from the text. You should be putting it in your own words and just summing up the big ideas. I noticed in your last retell that some of you used words directly from the text, you copied sentences from the text, and that's not really what a retell is. It should just sum up the big ideas. Finally, try combining events into compound sentences to make your retell more concise or shorter. You don't want a long retell. The shorter, the better. So for example, if I was retelling what I did this morning, instead of saying, first I woke up, then I went to the bathroom, then I brushed my teeth, I could say, I woke up, went to the bathroom, and brushed my teeth, and I summed it up all in one sentence. Makes it more concise. After we do our reading, I'm going to bring the success criteria back, but for now let's move on to Chapter 13. Alright, so we left off where Mr. Fox ran into Badger, and now it seems that they're on a mission to get some more food for a feast. Chapter 13, Boonce's Giant Storehouse. "My dear Foxy," cried Badger, "what in the world has happened to your tail?" "Don't talk about it, please," said Mr. Fox. "It's a painful subject." They were digging the new tunnel. They dug on in silence. Badger was a great digger, and the tunnel went forward at a terrific pace now that he was lending a paw. Soon they were crouching underneath yet another wooden floor. Mr. Fox grinned slyly, showing sharp white teeth. "If I am not mistaken, my dear Badger," he said, "we are now underneath the farm which belongs to that nasty little pot-bellied dwarf, Boonce. We are, in fact, directly underneath the most interesting part of that farm." "Ducks and geese!" cried the small foxes, licking their lips. "Juicy, tender ducks and big, fat geese!" "Exactly," said Mr. Fox. "But how in the world can you know where we are?" asked Badger. Mr. Fox grinned again, showing even more white teeth. "Look," he said, "I know my way around these farms blindfolded. For me, it's just as easy below ground as it is above." He reached high and pushed up one wooden floorboard, then another. He poked his head through the gap. "Yes!" he shouted, jumping up into the room above. "I've done it again! I've hit it smack on the nose, right in the bullseye. Come and look!" Quickly, Badger and the three small foxes scrambled up after him. They stopped and stared. They stood and gaped. They were so overwhelmed they couldn't speak. For what they now saw was a kind of fox's dream, a badger's dream, a paradise for hungry animals. "This, my dear old Badger," proclaimed Mr. Fox, "is Boonce's mighty storehouse. All his finest stuff is stored in here before he sends it off to market." Against all the four walls of the great room, stacked in cupboards and piled upon shelves reaching from floor to ceiling, were thousands and thousands of the finest and fattest ducks and geese, plucked and ready for roasting. And up above, dangling from the rafters, there must have been at least 100 smoked hams and 50 sides of bacon. "Just feast your eyes on that!" cried Mr. Fox, dancing up and down. "What do you think of it, eh? Pretty good grub." Suddenly, as though springs had been released in their legs, the three hungry small foxes and the ravenously hungry Badger sprang forward to grab the luscious food. "Stop!" ordered Mr. Fox. "This is my party, so I shall do the choosing." The others fell back, licking their chops. Mr. Fox began prowling around the storehouse, examining the glorious display with an expert eye. A thread of saliva slid down one side of his jaw and hung suspended in mid-air, then snapped. "We mustn't overdo it," he said. "Mustn't give the game away. Mustn't let them know what we've been up to. We must be neat and tidy and take just a few of the choicest morsels. So to start with, we shall have 4 plump young ducks." He took them from the shelf. "Oh, how lovely and fat they are! No wonder Boone's gets a special price for them in the market." "All right, Badger, lend me a hand to get them down. You children can help as well. There we go. Goodness me, look how your mouths are watering. And now, I think we had better have a few geese. 3 will be quite enough. We'll take the biggest. Oh my, you'll never see finer geese than these in a king's kitchen." "Gently does it. That's the way. And what about a couple of nice smoked hams? I adore smoked ham, don't you, Badger? Fetch me that stepladder, will you please?" Mr. Fox climbed up the ladder and handed down 3 magnificent hams. "And do you like bacon, Badger?" "I'm mad about bacon," cried Badger, dancing with excitement. "Let's have a side of bacon. That big one up there." "And carrots, Dad," said the smallest of the 3 small foxes. "We must take some of these carrots." "Don't be a twerp," said Mr. Fox. "You know we never eat things like that." "It's not for us, Dad. It's for the rabbits. They only eat vegetables." "My goodness me, you're right!" cried Mr. Fox. "What a thoughtful little fellow you are. Take 10 bunches of carrots." Soon all this lovely loot was lying in a neat heap upon the floor. The small foxes crouched close, their noses twitching, their eyes shining like stars. "And now," said Mr. Fox, "we shall have to borrow from our friend Bunce 2 of those useful push carts over in the corner." He and Badger fetched the push carts, and the ducks and geese and hams and bacon were loaded onto them. Quickly the push carts were lowered through the hole in the floor. The animals slid down after them. Back in the tunnel, Mr. Fox again pulled the floorboards very carefully into place so that no one could see they had been moved. "My darlings," he said, pointing to 2 of the 3 small foxes, "take a cart each and run back as fast as you can to your mother. Give her my love and tell her we are having guests for dinner. The badgers, the moles, the rabbits, and the weasels. Tell her it must be a truly great feast. And tell her the rest of us will be home as soon as we've done one more little job." "Yes, Dad! Right away, Dad!" they answered, and they grabbed a trolley each and went rushing off down the tunnel. And that takes us to the end of chapter 13. I wonder if you can guess where they'll be going in chapter 14. Write your predictions of what you think will happen next in the comment section below. But now let's take a look at your independent work. In a paragraph, retell the events of chapter 13, Bunce's Giant Storehouse. Please notice that I said a paragraph. Your retell shouldn't be any longer than that. In red, I've told you, do not copy directly from the text. It is so important in a retell that you use your own words. If you copy from the text, you're going to end up making your retell longer than it needs to be, and you're going to include details that you don't need to include. Below, I've included the success criteria so that you can refer to that and refresh your memory on what needs to go into your retell. As always, when you're done, take a picture, send it to me, and stay safe. I'll see you soon.